What hypocrisy pisses you off the most? Dog breeding people will buy pugs that born with many physical abnormalities just so they are cute. They can hardly breathe and people scream how cute and funny it is. It is the same for many other species of dogs. We are breeding them to be cute, not healthy, and then act like we love them. I know a lot of pugs and only a few of them have breathing problems. Every one of them with breathing problems is fat. But get puggles instead. And forks French bulldogs mixed with Boston Terrier. Or, adopt from a shelter instead of breeding more dogs. There are too many dogs without homes that are euthanized, so breeding more is literally a death sentence for shelter dogs. What is worse is that people will buy dogs because of a trend, and when they realize that having a dog is responsibility, they will throw them away. When some people claim you should be tolerant and accepting of them, but they are not tolerant and accepting with others. I spend time around LGBT activist types, and I've never seen a worse case of this. Expecting people to carry someone else's activism water is exactly the same as a religious group expecting people to carry their water. Just because someone doesn't want to get involved doesn't mean they are some kind of threat. Maybe people have their own things to worry about. A little empathy goes a long way. Exactly. I'm a straight person who doesn't conform to gender stereotypes, and I've been bullied, made fun of, and attacked online by members of the LGBT just for being straight and looking different. And feminists and liberals don't care and actually support them in this bullying. Mind-blowing. People who claim to love animals yet eat meat. I love animals, but livestock is livestock. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Livestock is a name we humans have given to animals. It doesn't make them any less of an animal. It doesn't mean they are inherently different beings. Livestock are animals that have been earmarked for human use. The thing is, meat and milk for the time being is important for human development and nutrition. Until the cultivation of insects becomes widespread and feasible, the use of animals by humans for food is necessary. What nutrients do we need to obtain from animals that cannot be obtained from plants? Also, how does earmarking an animal to die for human use change the animal's sentience, or his or her ability to suffer? People who claim to love animals or even like them, but they eat meat. Assuming you mean all animals? Fair enough. Yes. If you wonder why I also mean for giraffe CCT, just ask. This is a false equivalence between meat consumption and disdain for animals. So according to you, in order to be fine with eating something, you have to have disdain for it? And do you really believe you can love someone, while at the same time, pay for the slaughter of him or her, so you can needlessly eat them? It's not a false equivalence. If you say you love animals, and yet eat them, you're not actually saying you love animals. You're saying you love some animals, but don't care what happens to the rest. That's not really disdain, it's bias. And it makes no sense. Leftists who claim to be patriotic yet are attempting to assist illegal immigrants before their own homeless veterans. Hypocrisy at its finest. Hypocrisy. Americans that are against immigration, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest toast to me. I'll lift my lamp beside the golden door. When did I say I was against immigration? I said illegal immigration. If you want to come the right way. The same way that my grandfather had to come. To slip through the immigration process and profit off of social security and welfare benefits is a disgrace and dishonor to those who've come the legal correct way. Cockfighting should be legal. Chickens on farms are treated far worse, and that's legal. Roosters naturally fight each other and are a primitive species unlike dogs. If a cockfight is raided, the roosters are later killed by the police, and the people at the fight suffer serious legal consequences. Could you imagine telling a child that their father is in jail because of an animal we eat needed to be saved to later be killed anyway? Either chickens need to be given the same status dogs are and we stop eating them, or cockfighting should be legal. Eating chicken that came from a brutal factory farm, but saying cockfighting should be illegal at the same time is hypocritical. Congressmen who won't support cannabis legalization due to us not yet fully understanding its long-term effects, but take money hand over fist from big tobacco lobbyists. Pretty much all politicians are hypocrites extraordinaire, no matter the issue. The manufacturers of fentanyl spend absurd amounts of money lobbying against legalizing cannabis. Well, we fully understand the long-term effects of tobacco. Religious people who insist they are right in face of evidence to the contrary, who don't even understand what their holy book says. As a religious person, I believe I'm right because of all the evidence. I found this applies more to atheists. I obviously am an atheist, but I don't see evidence for a deity, but very much willing to listen. I suppose I'd like to know first which deity you believe in, what religion you follow. People who support our troops by posting online, or with a bumper sticker, but do nothing about U.S. troops going off to wars we should not have gotten into, and coming back with PTSD, that they try to self-medicate with either drugs, or a 12 gauge. Jesus, the 12 gauge really makes this a whole lot worse than it already is. When people tell you to Saint Optar LKNGDR in GT test street, but then they turn to someone else and start talking, but for a God cause. That happened to me in the 4th grade, but I had my BFFL, that actually really hates everyone but honest by me, and said your mouth is moving, so you're talking, best 4th grade moment ever. When people are more than happy to throw out insults, be obnoxious, and make your life difficult, but the moment you lose your patience, and do the same, you're suddenly the bad guy. My favorite kind is when mods insult you all they want, whether subtly or otherwise, only to ban you for disrespecting them, whatever form that might take. People who expect and then berate others for not being a complete version of themselves that know everything and therefore should never make mistakes because they should know better, whilst telling everybody that they themselves are still a work in progress, that is still evolving. Just people who expect perfection in general. You know those students, some with their parents and even sometimes teachers, who come together for strikes looking for laws and measures against pollution etc. When that happened in my country, after it was all over, the floor of the Capitol was full of trash left by those fighting against pollution. When people tell you to be yourself and then judge you. Example, you should get a job in something you love, and then you won't make a lot money with that. There are still too many people who cannot fathom the fact that not everyone fits smoothly and comfortably into society. People who say we need the Second Amendment to protect our rights from the government, but don't care when our rights are violated. You the government. See Patriot Act, Espionage Act, Reality Winner for the courts, NSA, etc. Hating people for hating people. This is what they mean when they say that hatred begets hatred. You can't destroy darkness with darkness. Only light can do that. You can't destroy hatred with hatred. Only love can do that. People who have no moral compass, but think they are so great because they don't have any arrests. Maybe you don't have any moving violations or petty crimes, but you have legally destroyed many lives with your actions and behaviors. Churches that are tax-free, yet they take in millions, have jets and mansions. But we can't afford universal healthcare. You can afford universal healthcare. It's the corporations that can't afford for you to have it. People who hated you in middle school suddenly come back to you after high school acting like nothing happened. It's even worse when the loner kid becomes hot, rich, famous, and suddenly everyone acts like they were their best friends. Republicans claiming universal healthcare is preposterous, even though the World Health Organization declared it a human right about 70 years ago, and say we don't have money for it, but support raising the defense budget. People that borrow money from you, make no effort to pay it back, get pissy with you when you start asking about it, but when it's the other way around they can harass you as much as they like, and you better not be late paying it back. SJWs in the LGBT community preach about acceptance and inclusion, but are also gatekeeping each other constantly, and try to silence any opinion they don't agree with. It's embarrassing. Women not having to serve in the military. In Austria every man has to go to the military for at least 6 months when he is 18. I think it's sexist to think that not all women can do their duty. When people judge you for doing whatever just because they don't do it, but when they decide they want to do that same thing they judge you for not doing it, like drinking or smoking, or just about anything else. Christians who worship Jesus and insist that you need to do the same, but show the type of intolerance towards other types of people, literally the opposite of what their savior is asking them to do. Democrats and Republicans blaming each other, but never accepting responsibilities for their party's own mistakes. It makes my blood boil, and it's childish and immature. People heavily enforcing rules upon others, while not following the same rules themselves. Yes, that's the definition of hypocrisy. Good job. People who openly and deliberately say things that insult other people's lives and well-being, and then have the stone to call other people intolerant when they call them out for it. When people post pleasant pictures or selfies of themselves with an inspirational quote for caption, but they're the laziest people or most toxic people at work, rolls eyes. People who brag about how eco-friendly they are, then sit in their cars with the engine running for 5 to 10 minutes while they play games on their phones. When Steve Harvey said, if someone is religious, where is their moral barometer? Also, Steve Harvey cheats on his wives on multiple occasions. Being obnoxiously drunk, loud and complaining about a child crying on plane or in a restaurant. The child can't stop Missy, but you can. Requesting allowances for their poor behavior while having the empathy and patience of a Junebug whenever somebody makes a mistake or steps on their ego. Anti-vaxxers, pro-lifers, and idiots who aren't smart enough to just read my comment till they understand it before running their mouths. The fact that there is a ton of help for women in abusive situations but nobody seems to care about men in abusive situations. It happens. Pro-life, but anti-helping poor people. That human life is incredibly valuable, but once it's born, you're on your own. Factory farming practices being completely legal, but if you treated dogs or cats the same way you'd be charged with animal cruelty. Liberals and feminists claiming to be all about women's and LGBTQ rights, but looking the other way when it comes to Islam. People who get onto others for lying about their age and doing bad stuff, then it turns out they're doing the same thing. My dad, when Obama was elected, we can't have him as president. He has no experience. My dad, when Trump was elected,